As South Park has evolved over the years, many characters have evolved alongside the show, and one of the most obvious evolutions is Randy Marsh. I've talked a ton about Randy on this channel, including the episode that seemed to be his biggest turning point, but with his evolution came an array of profoundly stupid types of behavior. Maybe the most insane showcase of Randy's stupidity is the episode Medicinal Fried Chicken, which also features a great selfish Cartman subplot and some very funny social satire. And though there are countless candidates for stupidest thing Randy Marsh has ever done, I think it's clear that this episode contains the stupidest thing Randy Marsh has ever done in South Park. Quick question though, do you struggle to find practical gifts for your loved ones for their birthdays or holidays that they'll use every single day? Raycon has your answer, because let me tell ya, whether it's listening to podcasts while walking my dog, surfing YouTube at home, editing, listening to music, I use my earbuds more than anything else I own, and Raycon's latest model is better than ever. Active noise cancellation, 32-hour battery life, and an incredibly affordable price point. These things are just a no-brainer. Since I use earbuds so much, one of my biggest frustrations has always been grabbing my pair and realizing they're dead, but Raycons have this amazing quick charge function. Only 10 minutes of charging gives you 90 minutes of battery. They also have wireless charging capabilities, plus they're water and sweat proof if you're trudging through the rain like I am or wearing them on a run. And you can even customize your pair to your liking with these protective case covers, so you know, you won't constantly mix them up with every other pair of earbuds like that other brand. Go to buyraycon.com/Johnny2 to get up to 15% off everything on Raycon's website. That's up to 15% off when you go to buyraycon.com/Johnny2. Check out Raycon today. The entire idea for Medicinal Fried Chicken started as one of those sort of magical, happenstantial South Park brainstorms. After a trip to Colorado, Matt and Trey started talking about how medical had become legalized, and they basically got caught up talking about the ebbs and flows of what substances are and aren't okay to sell.
How fatty food now is like the new, like, okay, we've got to ban that. You know, it's like how certain substances and shit become like okay in society and then other ones become not okay.
This is definitely the crux of the social commentary for the episode, and I think it's portrayed pretty brilliantly, but the way they got to the specifics of this story is kind of wild. In talking about how substances' acceptability change in society, they got to the idea of selling meat out of a KFC, which coincidentally had a real-world parallel.
I've seen that before on somewhere online, and there's a pot store in LA in Venice, right? in Palms, I think, that was an old KFC that somebody turned into a pot store, and it basically looked just like this. Like, so it was funny that we joked our way to a place where that basically actually existed.
The KFC in question is called Kind for Cures, pretty brilliantly keeping the KFC acronym, at least marketing-wise. And I actually remember seeing this KFC 10 plus years ago when I lived in Los Angeles, and at the time, I was fully convinced that they were inspired by South Park. But as it turns out, they inspired the show through this sort of coincidental brainstorm session. Though, once South Park aired their episode, Kind for Cure started using South Park in their own marketing via window murals. They apparently even started naming some of their strains after South Park, including Kenny's Cat Piss, Stan's Wet Dream, and South Park Kush. And I gotta say, those are f***ing terrible names, just god-awful. But while this episode idea had a pretty funny origin, the things that make it great are how it portrays Randy and Cartman, showcasing the links of Cartman's selfishness and the links of Randy's stupidity. Obviously, the kids, and particularly Cartman, are devastated that the old KFC is now a dispensary, but Randy has the opposite reaction.
All right! I love the future!
This was an era where they were really starting to embrace Randy's obsessive one-track mind, a trait that was really first explored in The Losing Edge. But this is just such a funny example of Randy going way overboard. The moment he realizes that he can get pot if he just gets a doctor's reference, he ignores everything else, including the children.
KFC's gone, been replaced. I gotta get to the doctor.
The doctor? But Dad, we want to eat!
We gotta get to the doctor!
I love the number of ways this episode showcases Randy's pure ignorance also. He has no idea medicinal dispensaries are even a thing, then he doesn't realize that you need a medical card to use them, and then when he goes to the doctor to get one, he has absolutely no clue how or why you would even need one.
You are in fine shape! Well, that sucks.
And this leads to, as I mentioned up top, what has got to be the absolute stupidest thing that Randy has ever done in his entire life, which is saying a lot considering his track record.
Doctor, how do most people get cancer? Well, there's a lot of ways you can get cancer. Yeah, but what's the quickest way?
This is such a funny evolution of Randy's obsessive tendencies overlapping with his stupidity. Starting with season 9's The Losing Edge, we would usually get 1 or 2 obsessive Randy stories a year. Obviously beginning with those baseball fights, he got real caught up in his quote-unquote alcoholism in Bloody Mary, he was briefly obsessed with World of Warcraft, obviously there was the entire Wheel of Fortune debacle, and his role in the Hair Club for Men. He led the entire world astray with his lies in Pinewood Derby, and as stupid as some of those things are, do any of those things remotely compare to willingly giving yourself cancer?
Luckily, most of these cancers are slow growing and can take years to develop. Damn it.
There are obviously so many other ways he could do this. He could just buy it illegally, he could pay someone who does have a card, he could go see a shadier doctor who's willing to write a script for something else.
Randy, instead of pretending he has back pain, which is really all you need to do, is just say, my back hurts or my knee hurts or some shit, and he goes and gives himself testicular cancer.
So yeah, in order to get a medical card, Randy gives himself cancer by microwaving his junk. Incredible stuff.
Mr. Marsh, I'm afraid that the test came back positive. You do have testicular cancer. Score!
I think the biggest reason that this episode is considered to be so iconic is the visual right here, which I'm sorry to say, I gotta blur it. But Randy's absolutely massive balls and the way he learns to maneuver around town on them is just insanely funny. Not to mention the way he influences all the other guys in town, but we'll get there soon. First, let's talk about the Cartman subplot, which is vintage Cartman and contains the real social commentary here. Obviously, the thing that spurs on the Randy plot is that the KFC has been replaced with a dispensary, but it also reveals that due to new legislation, fast food restaurants aren't allowed in low-income areas anymore.
KFCs were only in low-income areas. In the entire state of Colorado, Kentucky Fried Chicken is illegal.
Obviously, legislation like this never really took hold, but Matt and Trey rightfully recognized the irony that while some were fighting for people's rights to bodily autonomy with things like cannabis, others were also fighting to prevent that autonomy in regards to the food that we eat.
But that it was sort of that joke too of like so many of the people that fight so hard for marijuana should be legal are some of the same people that are saying, you know, get rid of KFC, get rid of Taco Bell, get rid of this stuff's bad for you. You know, it's just like, and what doesn't matter what the truth that like they're just trying to oppress a different group of people.
Personally, I see the whole banning fast food thing as an attempted band-aid for a deeper issue, but the irony here remains, to have these kinds of fights happening simultaneously is a very funny contradiction.
For some people, you know, they get just as high off fried chicken as other people do off weed.
And man, do I love the way they satirize this idea in this story, by basically having KFC completely take the place of cannabis and organized crime and illegal dealing.
Oh, God, yes! Where did you get that? I have my sources. That'll be $85.
This is just a South Park flourish, but I love the fact that this kid who's acting as a full-on mob boss is also wearing a t-shirt with a tractor on it. It's that juxtaposition between the kids and the adult nonsense they get into that is always so funny.
How much KFC are we talking? 2 buckets plus a 3-piece meal and 4 sides. Holy dude.
But this guy basically ropes Cartman into his illegal KFC peddling ring, since it's now been made illegal in Colorado, and Cartman effectively becomes a fried chicken dealer.
This is cut with Boston market gravy.
Okay, I'm sorry, yo.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite subplots in South Park. It's just a perfect intersection of the things that make the show work. A great in-character motivation with Cartman becoming maniacally selfish over fast food, and solid social commentary / satire showcased through a very funny role reversal. I mean, this wasn't even the first time we'd seen Cartman's selfish behavior towards KFC. It was the entire inciting incident in the episode The Death of Eric Cartman. And as you might expect, Cartman ultimately takes over the chicken black market, seemingly just so that he can eat all the KFC he wants, even making a deal with the Colonel himself. But even though this subplot is great, it still really takes a backseat comedically to 2 things, and both of those things are hanging off Randy. And once Randy is diagnosed with cancer and gets his medical card, the entire episode dives headfirst into the absurdity and the comedy of this situation.
Randy! Jesus, Randy! Your balls! I know. Smoking pot right in front of a cop.
The funniest visual is easily Randy bouncing around on himself like he's on a hoppity hop, but one of my favorite things about this episode is how, despite how obviously stupid Randy's scheme was, he has fully convinced all the other guys in town to also give themselves testicular cancer. And not just because of the medical card, Randy convinces them that there are numerous advantages.
I can have all the pot I want, I get around faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat,
I can just sit on my balls.
This is, I think, a pretty important aspect of the episode in regards to Randy's characterization and evolution, because though it cannot be more clear how foolish his actions are in this episode, he is fully rewarded for them. Like, outside of the cancer, absolutely nothing comes back to bite him in the ass. His life markedly improves in pretty much every way. Sharon is even more attracted to him.
Oh, it's just that I thought some more alone time could maybe be really...
Hey, my eyes are up here.
It would be one thing if Randy's stupidity was leading to major consequences, but in this instance, easily the stupidest thing he has ever done led only to positives in his life, which I think absolutely leads to his continued foolish behavior that we see in the ensuing decade. In fact, the only real consequence Randy experiences in this episode is that he can't fit through doors anymore, which means he can't get into the dispensary. The real consequence comes on the black market chicken side of things, as crime and violence worsens around the growing chicken cartel activity. And in classic South Park fashion, everyone takes the exact wrong lessons from the entire ordeal.
Once again, marijuana is illegal!
Despite the clear connection to the black market chicken trade, they blame the growing crime and violence on weed. And even more hilariously, the doctor thinks he's figured out why there's been a rise in cancer.
Ever since we got rid of KFC, we've seen a great rise in cancer. But today we welcome back KFC and all the medical benefits it gives us.
This is an iconic and beloved episode for a reason. It really is just the absolute perfect cross-section of everything people love about South Park. Between Cartman and Randy's hilarious, character-driven insanity, and the way the fast food and medical marijuana plots perfectly interweave and reverse roles, it's just got all the hallmarks of a top-tier South Park episode. I mean, it even made such a splash that KFC themselves had to respond to its depiction of the Colonel in an interview. A spokesman had this to say in response.
As you might expect, KFC Corporation was not contacted by Comedy Central for permission to use our brand in South Park. We had absolutely no say in the show's content.
But I think that the biggest impact this episode would have is in just how far they realized they could push Randy. I mentioned some of the obsessive Randy plots that came before this, but as I said multiple times, this is the height of his stupidity. And one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough is just how foreshadowing this entire endeavor would be for the future of Randy, i.e. Tegrity Farms. Obviously, Randy's entire trajectory led to the Tegrity arc, and I lay that out pretty clearly in my Evolution of Randy Marsh video, but Medicinal Fried Chicken not only showcased his obsessive tendencies, but the absurd risks he was willing to take. And while shoving his junk in the microwave to give himself cancer is still absolutely the dumbest thing Randy has ever done, the closest he's come since have primarily been Tegrity Farms schemes. Blowing up citizens' home grow ops, I mean, that's basically terrorism, making deals with the Chinese government, straight up murdering an entire herd of cows while trying to peddle meatless Tegrity burgers. Let's not even talk about the pangolin. While tons of Randy's behavior over the years naturally escalated to his complete lack of tegrity in the Tegrity Farms arc, in retrospect, Medicinal Fried Chicken was such an obvious foreshadow to exactly what we could expect, and nearly 10 years before the Tegrity arc even began. Though I think it's also interesting that most fans really love Medicinal Fried Chicken, but many are not major fans of the whole Tegrity Farms arc. Perhaps the answer to why Tegrity Farms isn't as beloved lies in the underlying message of this episode, that there is absolutely such thing as overdoing it. Too much of a good thing and all that. Maybe the occasional Medicinal Fried Chicken is all the Tegrity we need. Honestly, I actually like Tegrity Farms. I just thought that was a good way to wrap up this video. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny two cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny two cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.